I'm ADHD, as you can tell. I got the attention span of a dust mite on crystal meth. Yeah, maybe even less. What? Anyway. Okay, I'm Lucien Broste, singer guitarist with Truth and Agony here in Saskatoon, and this is episode 63 of the Sit Down Podcast.
Hey, I'm Mark.
I'm Joel.
These episodes of the Sit Down Podcast are brought to you by Funky Moose Records.
Subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below, and ring the bell because it really helps us out, you guys.
And check out funkymooserecords.ca for all your used and new records and accessories.
And merch. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Right on. So there's our intro.
Awesome.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, man. Right on.
Right on. How have you been?
Yeah. You know, it's funny because with this COVID stuff, does anyone really know how we have been, are going to be? You know, like
right.
I'm still alive. I'm not sick, and it's another day on the planet. Right? Could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah, so we're going on, for those of you at home, we are doing Zoom again tonight. We were trying something else, but we, like every other week, we had some technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the whole premise of the other app is that you can record in high definition on your device. So in our case,
cool.
on our computer and on your phone.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
That's not all worked out yet, I guess.
Yeah, we got some to work out there.
Yeah. Technology, eh?
That's why we have Zoom as a backup. It's all good.
Yeah. I knew Zoom worked because I did an interview not too long ago with Zoom. So I'm like, if it worked then, it should work now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Who did you do the interview with?
I did an interview with Galaxy 107 FM News in New Zealand. I thought it was just like some small radio station, but like 9.5 million people tuned into this interview. I was like, oh, hi world, you know. Yeah. I thought it was just like a small group of people that would listen, but he's like, no, we're like out there, you know. So it's on my Facebook too, right? So I posted the interview and just gathering press and stuff like that, right? It's pretty cool because we got an album coming out here as soon as humanly possible. Like it's done, it's ready to be pressed. And just when you're doing shipping and stuff and you're dealing with these big companies to get your album pressed, it's just a nightmare right now with COVID, like an absolute nightmare. In the States, like people are reading in the press, like we're reading in the paper that the States is all opened. Well, it is, but that's people just saying, hey, we're going to keep doing this. It's not like mandated, and it's not like they, you know, I have a few friends that work in industry down there, and they're like, yeah, we're not even allowed to work. And if we are, we're only allowed to work at quarter capacity for so long, right? Like it's just a nightmare, especially here in Canada where we kind of follow the US sort of thing. And if the US doesn't know what's going on, neither do we, right? And there's just no end in sight to this, right? So hopefully these vaccines work, we can get back to normal and get back to playing some shows and touring and stuff like that, right? Because with an album coming out, we're not even allowed to play to support it in Saskatoon, right? So yeah, it's really hard to charge people to come see a show where you're not allowed to leave your table and go talk to other people. Like as a music fan, I know I wouldn't want to pay for that, you know. So I wouldn't really blame people, but hopefully these restrictions loosen so we can get to some shows and stuff like that and get back to playing, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think they will. Like now that summer's around the corner, I think
I think so too. Yeah, and these vaccines, like for better or worse, yeah, there's some side effects, but they're showing at least they're doing something, right? Which is better than doing nothing, you know. So it's a step in the right direction. But as soon as they say we're able to play, like we are definitely going to hit some stages all over Saskatchewan as soon as possible. We've been ready to go for months, and as soon we're just waiting for the green light, right? Like, and we can release the album and start playing it. And until then, we're just kind of at the mercy of what the restrictions are. Because remember, we were kind of locked down for a while, and then they loosened it up for a little bit, and then 2 weeks later we went back on lockdown. So if it's going to be the start,
it
was like 2 weeks.
I think that's we were in Saskatoon. I think that was like those 2 weeks where we saw Mo Marley.
No,
at someone
well, no,
else's pub,
there,
isn't
it
that
was
what?
actually more recently too that restrictions got tightened
Had-
up again.
I think in this whole
Okay,
pandemic,
okay.
restrictions have
You're
only
not paying
loosened
attention, are you?
twice. I think they've only been loosened twice this whole pandemic. Once was in like last summer, and then once was just recently. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like I have friends that live in BC that play in bands, and even in BC, you're not allowed to travel to different parts of the province, let alone outside the borders, right? Like so it's
Right.
different everywhere. Like Ontario is completely locked down. There's nothing open. Like
Yep.
that's it, right? So I don't see how we can stay not locked down.
I know I heard a little birdie told me that in Alberta, I'm not sure when this is going to get implemented or if it's going right now, but there's going to be a program called like curbside concert or something like that. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I have
Right?
heard of this. Yeah.
Have you heard of this, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No, I haven't.
So, okay, basically what it is, think of it like I'll try and explain it the way I understand it. Think of like Sask Music.
Yeah.
As the organization. What happens is if you want a concert, you would call Sask Music and book a concert at the edge of your driveway for like $300. Let's say you want to see Mo Marley play at the end of your driveway. So for $300, Mo Marley comes out and they play like a little private set.
Yeah, he'll do it. They'll go in like your backyard while you're on your deck, and it's.
Yeah.
I've noticed it's a lot of country folk, like a lot of country guys and girls are doing that right now, right? I think if you're just like a singer-songwriter, you can do it, but there's no way you're going to haul 2 Marshall stacks and drums to someone's driveway, right? Like it doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah, it'd be like an acoustic kind of thing. I
Yeah.
They're doing that in Alberta.
Yeah, and you know what? The people that are doing it are booked solid. Like people are screaming for it. Yeah.
And like $300. Well, I don't know if they get the full $300, but I know it costs $300.
Is Sask Music trying to do this too?
Well, it's not, as far as I know. I think it's in
no, they're not here.
Alberta and Ontario. I think
Ontario, yeah. Manitoba's going to do it next. Yeah. And so what they're doing is like if you're like acoustic or just singer-songwriter kind of thing, whatever. Yeah, I think it's 50-50 the split, like the pay split, which if you're not playing anywhere else isn't bad, you know what I mean? Because at least you're playing.
Nothing.
Yeah, and people are going to want to buy like merch, they're going to want to buy CDs, things like that, you know what I mean? And at least you're getting out there, you know what I mean? It's right now people want to do this live concert thing where you're like selling tickets for virtual concerts.
Yeah.
And it's just not the same. Like we've all been to shows, right? You go to shows for the experience, to meet people that like the same music you do and shit like that, right? So you're not going to pay $70 to sit on your couch and watch a band on a screen. Like you're not going to do that, right? So, but how is a band supposed to stay viable if you're selling on-screen tickets for $10? You know what I mean? Like it's really hard to make money, you know? And you also don't want to be overcharging your fans, which when a band does that, I look at that like a screw you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So your bands are kind of caught in this kind of gray area right now where they're saying that businesses are open 25%. So if they're open 25%, you should be allowed to play a small acoustic show and be able to make money off it, 50, 60 people at $10 a head, right? But they're saying that they want to have privacy, like glass, like plexiglass between band members. And if you're on a stage, it's not 6 feet, it's 12 feet, right? So the amount of people you're allowed to have in a venue literally depends on the size of the venue itself. You take a tape measure from where they're allowed to have people outside the door to the bathroom door, and that's how many people you can fit in. And you literally have to sit there with a tape measure and figure out how big your audience is going to be. I know some bands that are playing at like coffee houses and stuff, and they have to turn people away. You know what I mean? They're only allowed 40 people, right?
Yeah.
So, or 30 people or 10 people. A place that holds 60 people with COVID can hold like 15. So if there's like 120, it'd be 30 and so on and so forth. You kind of base it on that. And it's impossible to make a living. Some of those guys I know are just working legit jobs. Like I'm doing reno on houses myself right now because I couldn't support myself with music, you know?
Right.
And it's funny because like the mental health issues that are coming from like the lockdowns and stuff. My father actually brought up a really good point to me. He said, you know, I was thinking about these restrictions and this lockdown business and stuff. And he was saying if the first lockdown worked, why another one? And if the first lockdown didn't work, why another one? Pretty, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It is. Am I wrong in thinking that is Canada the only one that's like on a lockdown right now? Like the states
No
are.
other.
Oh no, India is bad.
Some. Oh
Is
yeah,
it?
bad,
Oh,
bad. We
oh, yeah.
Canada actually just canceled all flights. If you're coming from India, you're not coming here.
Right.
But what's to stop them from jumping over the border to Bangladesh and coming here, or to somewhere else and coming here? You know what I mean? Like there's just
Yeah.
our restrictions are so porous. And here in Saskatoon, we actually just had one of these anti-mask rallies where they were bringing children to it. Like they were wanted to. It was a kids rally, and I like. Listen, I'm not an anti-masker. You know what I mean? But I do find some problems with the way the government is forcing us to do certain things. You know, like that it's part of a bigger picture, right? I'm not political at all. Neither of the guys in my band, but we are headed for a dark time if things don't turn around fast in Canada, right? And like we sold off our places to make vaccines and stuff. Like, why did we do that? You know what I mean? And we sold them while this pandemic was happening too. I'm not a conspiracy theorist in the slightest. I don't have the patience for it. But there's some points that are being raised about this that really do make you want to ask some questions, right? You know, like I wasn't brought up to just accept everything as fact. I was brought up to question and to ask, you know, questions
sure.
that are constructive. Yeah, totally.
Too.
You know
I
what
think
I mean?
that's healthy as a human race. I think we should be asking.
I agree.
questions.
I agree. And I teach my children that too, especially, you know, I remember when I was a kid, like I'm 40 years old. So when I was a kid, I remember if like an adult was yelling at you, like you were in shit, you know what I mean? Like that was some serious stuff, right? And now you see kids, like just the way kids treat adults, and like it's madness, you know what I mean? And the world since Clinton kind of has steadily just kind of gone down. But remember that it happened a little bit at a time, so that it didn't happen all at once and you didn't notice like, hey, there's something wrong here. It happened a little bit at a time and we were all okay with it. And now that the curtains lift off on what's left, people are like, oh well, how did we agree to this? Well, we did, you know. So it's a really scary time, but it's also really, COVID's really showing a lot about the human race, about who we are. Like COVID has really divided us as a country, you know, like it's super divided us. I know people in Saskatoon here where these anti-mask protests are like, these arguments are coming to blows, you know, like people who have been friends for 15 years are no longer friends anymore over this, you know. Whereas myself and the guys in my band, we just choose not to make it such a big deal. You know what I mean? Like if you don't want to get the vaccine, don't. If you do. That's the good part about being in Canada, is we have that choice, right? And and people are just sick of it. They're sick of being locked down. They're sick of being told what to do. They're sick of being scared. And I don't blame them, you know. So if they were like, well, we're going to have a big freedom concert in Saskatoon and everyone can come, social distancing, of course, we would gladly volunteer our time. Here in Saskatoon, there's a safe injection site. I'm actually a recovering addict myself. And our city has denied funding to this safe injection site.
I read that.
But it just madness, absolute madness. And you know what it's going to take? And it's really sad that it's going to take this. And I was an opiate addict. I've never used a needle, but I was still on the pills and the heroin and the fentanyl and all that. But it's going to take one of these politicians' kids dying. It's going to take one of these politicians' kid thinking that he's snorting a line of cocaine and it's really fentanyl, and ODing and dying, for there to be a law when there should have been a law changed when the first person died. It's obvious that we have a problem here in Saskatoon, and the fact that they're not willing to allot the money that is going to save people's lives, it just shows the indifference and such a wide gap.
Right, the split,
right? There is no middle class in Saskatoon anymore. There really isn't. There is ultra poor and ultra rich, and both sides hate each other and are unwilling to have any meaningful dialogue about it to solve the problems, right? So a lot of bands are using music as a way to express that about what's going on. Truth and Agony is no different, right? Like we fully support any type of harm reduction, right? Where it helps people, because that's what it's for. Like looking at drugs like you're going to get rid of them is a waste of time and a waste of money. And it's been proven. Like, how much money have we spent on this war on drugs since Nancy Reagan said it in 79 or 80, right? Like hundreds of billions of dollars, and all we did was lock a bunch of non-violent people up for weed and seize a bunch of assets. Yeah, it's crazy, you know what I mean? And the gangs just got richer. And it's never ever going to change here in Saskatchewan like that, as long as people keep in that headspace, right? So you look at cities like Vancouver that are so progressive and try and find solutions to help its people, right? Like, why can't we be like that here? You guys aren't in Saskatoon, eh? Where are you guys? You're up by
No, we're in
Yorkton, aren't you?
No,
Oh, you're in
Bellevue.
Yeah, we're between Saskatoon and Prince Albert.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
That's
we're
that's
about an
north
hour.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're about an hour away.
I was actually born in Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan.
Oh yeah.
And I got given up for adoption at birth, and I spent the first 9 months of my life in a residential school in Beauval, Saskatchewan. I got adopted from there. And then I grew up here. My father was the deputy chief of police of Saskatoon when he retired. My father is Gary Broste. I'm Lucien Broste, his son. And I remember growing up thinking that the world was this wonderful place where everybody's so helpful. And you know, I learned otherwise very, very quickly. And I was able to use music as a way to kind of like fight my way out of it, because like I was a drug addict and I was in prison, and my life was just a complete disaster, and I had no hope, and I had no future and no goals. And then one day I was just like, you know what, man, this is really stupid that I keep doing this to myself. I'm hurting the people that I love. I'm hurting my body. I'm hurting my mind. And I'm a really good guitar player, and I'm wasting these talents. So over the years, I'd written a bunch of songs, and I decided to record them. And then when I recorded them, I figured I would just kind of release it just to say I did it, you know, like, hey, here's the goal that I made. But the response was so overwhelming for people screaming for more music that I was forced to form a band and start writing. So I recorded this entire first album pretty much by myself, and then formed the band after it was almost done. And now we're already starting to write our second album here, which we're going to be recording in at Tone Shifter Audio, Soundcastle Studios. It's in Viscount, Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Chris Douglas, I actually knew him very personally from when I was a kid. I went into foster care here in Saskatoon in the 90s. I remember at the time, if you were like a little bit different, or if you had behavioral issues or stuff, average teenager shit, that you got thrown into the system because parents didn't know how to deal with incorrigible youth, right? So a whole legion of kids here in Saskatoon from 1993 until 1999 went into and aged out of the foster care system, and I'm no different. So I met this Chris Douglas guy who owns Soundcastle. I was just learning how to play guitar. I was 14 years old, and him and I became like best friends when we were kids. It was an escape from a really bad situation in a foster home. And his dad, like to this day, is one of my heroes, because I remember I had to ask the foster workers permission to go there. So I would go there, and it would be like 9 o'clock on a Friday night, and they would want me to come back home. So they would call and say they were coming to pick me up. And his dad he kind of caught the play about what was going on in this foster home. And he was like, yeah, he's not coming back tonight. If you want him, come get him, but you're not coming to my house, So he just let us sit there and play guitar for days and months on end, hours and hours. And I don't know how he put up with that shit, because we were, yeah, we were little kids, and we had amps that were way too big for kids our age, and we loved it, I remember my parents buying me a Fender amp with a 112-inch speaker, and my dad telling me when I was in my 30s that it was the single biggest regret he ever had in his life was getting me that amp, and I had a blast, you know what I mean? Because I did end up getting in trouble in my life, but it was a conscious choice. I made that decision. But as a teenager, I never got in trouble, and playing guitar is why I didn't, because I would stay home and practice. So instead of going out and doing drugs and getting girls pregnant and causing problems or whatever, I stayed home, played guitar, and it really worked out for me. So I aged out of foster care at 17. And then I started, this is all a true story too, I started hitchhiking and train hopping. I started hopping trains around Canada and the United States, and I stayed on the road for about 17 and a half years. Like I pretty much started living an actual, like I didn't even get my first ID until I was 28 years old. I didn't have my first bank account until I was 33. I lived completely off the grid. I just, I was a street person. I would go into the cities and very nomadic existence. And when I got out of prison in 2018, I went in 2015, I got out in 2018. I came back to Saskatoon in 2019 from Winnipeg. And then I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And she was just she was like, you got to focus on music. Cause I was still using at the time. Right. And, I started ODing all the time. Like it got bad, it was at the point where it was like, hey, hurry up and die so we can quit worrying, and so I got clean. I went talked to my doctor and I got on Suboxone, the medication. It's kind of like methadone, so it really gave me my life back. And I was able to record this album and finish it, get a band, start writing new music. And now most of the venues in Saskatoon are wanting us to come play. Our Facebook page is blown up. Our YouTube is blown up. Like just people are wanting to hear what we have to offer. And we're more than happy to do it as soon as we find a stage that won't get a $15,000 fine for having us on it, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
You want to hear something else that I've learned? We have all heard about businesses and individuals being fined for COVID violations, right?
Yep.
How many people or businesses do you know that have actually paid one?
You know what? That's funny you ask that because I just looked that up. I think it was on Sunday. I was looking up those stats too. And
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, in 2020, I think it came out to like 25% of the fines that were given out in 2020 have been paid.
Yeah, I seen this article where they said it was from February of this year, where they said it was in February. There had been 46 tickets to date. Only 4 made it into court. All the rest got tossed out. And of the 4 that made it into court, only 1 person had to pay. And because they're being tossed, they're being tossed out for like civil rights violations, right? Yep. People are arguing it. And it sucks that in order for people to get their shit together, we have to go all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, right? Like we shouldn't have to make a court case out of something that's so simple, right? But you get with something like a virus, if one person doesn't follow the directions, it's still going to be there. And people, we're just at the mercy of this thing, right? So we have to all get it together somehow, right? Because I definitely don't want to sit at home for another 5 years by myself or with my wife. Don't lock me in here with her, please. Yeah. Oh, she's great. She's great.
Do you have any kids?
I do.
A 10-year-old.
I do. I have a 10-year-old son, and that's my wife's son. I also have a 12-year-old daughter from a previous relationship, but I also have a 20-year-old daughter who is about to make me a grandfather here in October, and she lives in Vancouver. Yeah, I had 3 kids with 3 different women in 3 different provinces. Most guys measure their dicks in inches. I measure mine in kilometers.
Fuck, that almost sounds like a song too, doesn't it? Three kids and three different women in 3 different provinces.
Yeah. Looking back, like obviously, if you don't have children, you'll never fully understand it until you do. But I wouldn't take away my children forever. But I definitely should have thought that through a little more. You know what I mean? Because it affected not just me, but it affected them as well. I definitely try and maintain as good a relationship I can with my children, right? Like I talk to my oldest daughter quite a bit, and I spend quite a bit of time with my youngest daughter as well. And my oldest daughter plays guitar too, and she's had some addiction issues herself, and she's so much like me that it's scary. You know what I mean? Like it's scary, right? And now that she's having her first child and she's settled down with a decent guy, and so she's making some positive changes in her life, and I hope it all works out for her. So hopefully the restrictions are loosened enough so I can go see my grandson in October. He'll be born. So I was hoping on heading out there for a little while. Like he's going to be born at the end of October, so we start recording about the 11th of October. So I'll take a 5-day break and I'll fly out there and then I'll come back. And so it's our future is so bright right now, and it's awesome that people are so receptive to local music, right? Like I've always noticed, I've lived all over Canada, and I've always noticed that Saskatchewan is one of those places where people are just super hyped on local music, right? Like they love it, just absolutely love it. bands become hometown heroes, like legends get made over these bands and stuff. And it's just such a cool experience to be like, I became friends with Earl Pereira of the Steadies too, right? And Earl's just such a fountain of knowledge for the Saskatoon music scene. He's just such an interesting guy, and him and I just kind of clicked right away when we met. Another guy that I met in the Saskatoon music scene is Matt Stinn. He owns Rainy Day Recording Studio here in Saskatoon. I actually did my album with him, and he's another one of those guys who's just such an addition to a scene. You know what I mean? Like just one of those dudes who's like a cornerstone of it. Like he's just such a good dude, and he's such a perfectionist and quality control that when he records you, like even if you're comfortable with it and he's not, you're not done yet. You know what I mean? Like yeah. And it was really cool because I'd never really recorded before, right? Like I'd recorded kind of in buddies' bedrooms, you know, you plug in direct sort of thing, but that kind of stuff. I'd never been in a studio with live mics and tracking and things like that. So instead of going in there and seeming like a complete noob, which is exactly what I did, he wasn't like, holy fuck, buddy, you got to learn, you know, like he took his time with me and kind of walked me through it. And he got such an awesome performance out of me. Like, I never really thought I was much of a singer. Did you guys get a chance to listen to those tracks I sent?
Oh, hell yeah, man. I listened to them all today.
Yeah. That's me singing. Me. Yeah. And he had me doing jumping jacks and shit like that in the studio, trying to get a good vocal take. He's like, do a couple laps around the room and stuff. It was awesome. He's a really cool guy. And he also plays in a band, a Saskatoon band called the Night Jays. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them, but they're pretty good. The drummer, Zach Strelioff, did the drums for my album. And if I didn't have my drummer and Zach didn't play in a band, he would definitely be my drummer, like without question. My drummer, Adam Yeo, he played in a couple bands in Saskatoon. And I think personally, and this is the first time I've publicly said it, I think he is hands down the best drummer in Saskatchewan. Hands down. Just he's that good. You know, it's scary.
Right.
And yeah, my guitarist, Blaine Dancy, and my bassist, Ador Morgado, they're just, it's funny when you play in a band, you have like your own kind of style that you play in, you know, like your influences and, you know, that kind of shit. And then you meet guys and then you want to make your own band that's original music. If you're playing covers, your styles are irrelevant because you're doing other people's music.
Right.
But if you're doing originals, normally you kind of got to compromise a little bit with each other, find something that works and go. With us, there was no compromise. We just started playing and that was it, you know? So I played in a few bands in my life and never really had that immediate spark like Truth and Agony did, right? So I'm super stoked to see what we can come up with in the future, and hopefully we can stay busy. I'd like to record a full-length album this fall. I'd also like to do a 4 or 5 song EP this summer if possible, but we never know if a studio is going to be open one day to the next, and I'd rather not pile a bunch of money paying a studio bill with money I don't have if it's not going to happen anytime soon, you know, because they're not too quick to give you your money back once you've paid it and you made a deal, you know what I mean? So yeah. And hopefully we can just start putting songs out towards radio and stuff. Like CFCR here in Saskatoon has a couple local spotlight kinds of things. We send some songs to them. We send songs to everyone and anyone that has an internet connection, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, I think you submitted some songs for what we're trying to do too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We got your submissions for that too. That hasn't been released yet, but we're still working out. We're ironing out the details on that right now too.
Yep.
That's super cool, you guys, man. Like, I always like, obviously major label bands and like the big acts and stuff are cool, but when you find the guys that are like mostly dedicated to local music, those are the ones you stick with. You know what I mean? Like if you want to know what's going on in the music scene, you don't ask the big name bands because they think they are the scene. You ask the local guys, right? They'll tell you what's up.
That's exactly it. I like the way you said that they think that they are the scene.
Yeah.
When in reality, they're not. It's the people around that and underneath.
Some of them are. Some of them may have something to do with it, but unless you're from like the 70s or the early 90s, you're probably not the scene, you know? When you're in a position of power and authority and where people kind of look up to you, you sort of got to think before you do things. And I'm learning that myself because I'm not perfect in the slightest, trust me. Right. And so I remember I was in a grocery store and this kid walked up, and he must have been maybe 15 or something. And he was talking to, I assume was his mother, and he pointed at me. And it must have been the face tattoo that always gives me away, right? His mother came over and she said, "Dave, you play in a band?" I said, "Yeah, I do." She's like, "Oh, my son just loves your music." So I took a picture with him. It was the first time I ever took a picture of someone.
Really?
And it was just that, man. And it was the coolest thing. You know what I mean? Like, this kid was looking at me like I was from another planet when I'm just a regular schmuck, just like everybody else, you know? And I told him that. I said, "Listen, you know, so just because I play in a band doesn't mean that I'm cooler than you. You know, that doesn't mean anything like that. Like, kids today, like, just need that little kind of positive push, because a lot of kids have a lot of esteem issues and shit like that, right? Because,
Yeah, for sure.
you know, with social media, the way you're conditioned to look and think and feel, like it's guys our age, like we obviously don't buy into that because we're a little past that, you know what I mean? But kids today, they do take that as fact and gospel, you know what I mean? They do think that
It's so I don't know. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying right now. Like, the world today, could you imagine like if we had the internet like 30 years ago?
oh god,
Like when we were in high school,
man.
like, holy shit, man.
No,
It's crazy. Like, I would think that like the city that was half an hour away, like, fuck, that was a big place, man. That was a half-hour drive away. And now
Yeah,
we're like
yeah.
on fucking Zoom calls with people in the UK and Australia.
yeah,
Like,
Australia, yeah.
yeah, it's like, holy shit, man. You know, it's literally an internet connection away.
Yeah.
No
You know
dial-up,
what?
it's all wireless.
Yeah.
Man, I remember when I was a kid, like, we're talking about the wash and slosh days in Saskatoon. That's how old I am. I remember if you wanted to know something about a band, like, you had to go to their shows and meet their fans, and like, you had to do the work. You didn't just click the button. You can learn everything and anything, get every release they ever had. Like, I remember having like those little mixtapes we used to make on those stereos and stuff.
Yeah,
Like, those were prized possessions, man. Like, you had music on there that nobody had. Like, you were the man. You know what I mean? And now now that kind of camaraderie is kind of like, it's not there anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's really not there anymore because of division and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, and music was what this thing that for me always brought people together, not separated them. You know what I mean?
Fuck, man, I remember watching, like, man, the TV was always either on like MTV or Much Music or something, and I always had a VHS tape queued up and ready to go. When a fucking good song came on, you'd hit record and record the video. Right?
I did that with the radio. I had my
radio?
I had my first radio show that I did myself was a microphone stuck between two speakers, and I hit the Michael Jackson Bad CD. I hit play, and I announced the first song that showed up, stuck the microphone between the two speakers, and let that record and sit there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And the song was going around the microphone again.
And
then
cool.
Yeah, and then I recorded all the songs from the radio and did the same thing, and I made that on the tape and I announced it myself. And
Fuck yeah,
your own little intros and stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
cool, man. That's
Do you
cool.
remember like, I remember Prince Albert radio station had like top 6 at 6.
Yeah, yeah.
They still
they still do.
So,
Yeah.
Fuck, man. And then like
top
I mean,
5 and 5. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like fucking, isn't it like AC/DC at 3 at one point?
Yeah.
But anyways, like the top 6 at 6, depending on like what songs we're playing, is you would get like the top hits there, and then just be a regular listener and make my mixtape throughout that, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
When a new song would come, and it's such bullshit though, right? Because it's all the same songs for like fucking like fucking Joey Lawrence was the top requested song of the day. Like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, come on, Lawrence. Come on.
You know what I mean? Like,
you didn't get any phone calls for this song.
Yeah, nobody called and requested.
No,
this.
don't, right?
Get the fuck out of here. 3 weeks in a row. Fuck off.
Yeah, your girlfriend made you play it, right? Like, come on, man. Treat me like a sucker, you know?
And it worked.
And like, I remember when Nirvana Unplugged in New York, like the actual concert came out. I remember I recorded it on a VHS tape.
Right.
I remember I remember like he had just died a few months before they released it, and then they released the concert footage, and it was the first time anyone, like, the CD wasn't even out yet. They released the concert footage, and I remember watching it and being like, man, like, this guy is a performer. There's something special about him. And then I remember, oh yeah, he just killed himself. You know, like,
right.
Yeah, Nirvana was a huge influence on Truth and Agony. Huge. I remember watching like on Much Music, like the Lithium video and stuff, and seeing him run and jump into the drums and being like, you know what, that probably hurt like a motherfucker, but I am going to do that someday. You know, like, yeah. So the safe injection site in Saskatoon, because they got their funding denied, they were considering doing a festival this summer by the skate park in Saskatoon. So a big outdoor show. And they asked if we'd take part in it. And immediately, without even consulting my band, I was like, yeah, we're there. And then I asked them if they wanted to be there after. And of course they're down, right? But still, that's still the kind of show that you just, you don't miss something like that, you know? And especially if they get the permits to do it, because people have been screaming for live music, the entire city will come see that show. The entire city will be there.
It'll be a sellout. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And we're super stoked to do it. And maybe I'll get a chance to do that drum thing I was talking about. You never know, right? Yeah. I don't want to be, I literally cannot afford to be like a guitar smashing band, but I think I might have one I can do it with. Yeah.
Right. It might be the one and only time you get to do it, man. So
you know, exactly. When I think of regrets, fellas, I don't think of anything that I did. I think of the things that I didn't get to do. You know what I mean? Right? Like the things that I wanted to do and didn't. I regret that, you know? But sure, I shouldn't have done all of the multitude of stupidness I've done in my entire life. But I don't regret it because it made me what I am today, you know? So
and put you where you are. Yeah, I get it, man. Totally.
I like if you're gonna learn a hard lesson, it's gonna hurt. And you should take something from it. Definitely. Like when I went to prison, I definitely took something from it. There is not a chance I will go back because I learned from it. I was also in that riot in 2016 in PA Penn there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was brutal. 2 guys got killed, like $6 million in damage. I didn't know concrete could burn. It does. It really does. I think it's the paint that was on it, right? But it was just pandemonium for 12 hours. And I'm not involved in like gang culture or anything like that. That's their business. But when it comes to prison, they definitely have a say in the way you do your time. So it was one of the few times in my life I was really wondering if, like, man, am I going to survive this? Am I going to make it through? You know, like I've never been in a car accident, knock on wood. I've never, the only times I've ever come close to dying was ODing, which was my own stupidity, right? But that was the time where I realized that I wasn't in control of the situation and that something bad could happen at any moment.
Right.
But I also didn't owe people money. I didn't run my mouth. I didn't talk shit. I didn't cause problems. So I was a nobody. And it was the one time in my life I was grateful for that fact. Very. And so, they shipped me to Nova Scotia. And I went out to Nova Scotia and finished my time up out there. And the prison I was in Nova Scotia was night and day compared to Saskatchewan. I don't think there'd been a fist fight in that prison in 12 years. Like people just didn't fight. There was never problems. Like there's no gangs there for starters, right? So there's no.
Hang on, Nova Scotia. How did you end up there?
Because my prison was just my unit was destroyed. They closed my part of the jail. It was absolutely destroyed. So they sent me to the maximum security unit in Quebec, and then they sent me to Nova Scotia. They flew me out there, chained to the floor. Oh, there we go.
Huh.
Yeah. Whenever they transfer prisoners, you have to be chained up, right?
Because there was nothing closer. How did that work?
No, the only closest one was Drumheller, and it was full. BC was full. Ontario was full. Stony Mountain was full.
I see.
And because I'm not a gang member, it limits where I can go. Some jails are for gang members only, right? If you have to be a gang member to go there, and I'm not one. So they sent me to a medium security in Nova Scotia, and it was the easiest time I've ever done in my life. I had nothing but good things to say about it. I made some lifelong friends there, and I definitely learned from my mistakes. And you won't be seeing me in prison anymore, that's for sure.
Right.
No way. Well, I wasted 3 years of my life. I'm never going to get that back. 3 years of my life because I was an idiot, right? And going to prison is usually a preventable thing for the most part, right? And I had no excuse for it to not be preventable, and all I can do is learn from it and do something else with my life. And that's what I chose to do. And music, my wife and my band really did save my life, because I was in trouble. You know, I wasn't happy with myself. I was really hurting inside. I was coming off of drugs. I was coming out of prison. Like I didn't really have that good of a future. So
I want to ask, so like you said that you like recorded the songs that we were listening to today, like you said you recorded those basically before you had the band put together.
Yeah.
I want to ask, how did you get in touch with like your bandmates, and like how did that form and get to happen? You know what I mean?
Good question, my man. So what happened was I met my drummer Adam first. I had made a post on the Truth and Agony page, and someone who knew Adam messaged me on the page, not my personal profile, but the band page. And so I messaged Adam and said, well, hey, you know, why don't you come for a tryout? So he brought his drums over to my house, and within 5 minutes of playing with him, I knew he was the guy. Like, that was just
Right.
I offered him the gig. He took it, and he introduced me to our guitar player Blaine, because he used to play in a band with him. And Blaine, who takes skateboarding pretty seriously, met our bassist Ador at the skate park, because Ador is like a BMX kind of guy.
Okay.
And so I met Adam, who introduced me to Blaine, who introduced me to Ador, and it all happened in the span of a month.
Nice.
And and we just started practicing together. Yeah, we just started practicing together. Like, when you think of putting a band together, you expect so much more headaches, and I just didn't have them. You know, like I didn't have to like school anyone. I didn't have to train anyone. I just kind of showed them the gist of the tune, and I didn't want them to come in and me tell them what to do. I just wanted to give them the basic, and then you go on your own and show me what you could do. So all of them got permanent positions, and that's it. They're full band members, and we're already writing our second album, which will be named Starlight Tours.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
awesome!
Super stoked. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, is that the one that you said you're going to be recording in Viscount, or are you recording
in
these ones in Viscount?
No. This one, Rage a Day, was recorded here in Saskatoon at Rainy Day Recording Studios.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Our second album, Starlight Tour, will be in Viscount at Sound Castle with Chris Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
It's so cool to have just a bunch of dudes on the same page. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to carry anyone. No one has to carry me. Like, we're all contributing. We all do a little bit of songwriting. We all have a say and a vote. And it's not just the pressure isn't on me to produce tons and tons of songs and then teach them to these guys, and then we record them. The first album, I said, I have to teach you these tunes for live purposes. Every album after that, we write it together. And so we got registered with SOCAN, and we just we're in the middle of putting the tracks through SOCAN now, so we can press these CDs and get it out there, and we can start playing it as soon as we're allowed to, I guess.
Yeah, freaking right. Yeah.
So to go back to all the way to the beginning, you got off an interview with one in New Zealand. How does someone in New Zealand find a Saskatoon band?
A friend of mine had told me about this New Zealand radio station, this Galaxy 107 FM, that was kind of, they had seemed like a preference for Canadian bands for some reason. I guess their listeners want Canadian music. So I introduced myself to Barbara Harkin, who's the morning co-host, and she asked for a couple of my songs, and I sent her a few tunes, and she just loved them, and she asked if I would want to do an interview. So I said sure, and I did it. And now they're waiting for the whole album. They want to do a full album release over there. Our first single, Lead the Way, got somebody shared it down there, is what happened. And then college radio picked it up, and then they've just been blowing it up ever since. So anytime we sent music, as soon as it gets released, like they were playing Lead the Way for about a week before they said who it was, and like they were getting requests almost every day for the song, right? So they figured they'd do an interview. Just the way they do things is really cool, and they're really knowledgeable people. DJ Grant and Barbara Harkin down there, super cool. They do kind of like what you guys do, just also focusing on international music, especially Canadian. They have a lot of country singers on there for some reason, but seems they liked our tunes, so cool.
Right.
Interesting.
That's gonna be us.
That is us.
Well, with the radio show, though, I mean.
Oh, like that. Yeah. Well, that's the plan.
I'm excited to get that radio show out there. Actually, I was giving Mark shit about it today.
What are you guys trying to do? You guys trying to go a little bigger than you are right now?
Well, it's not about. It's honestly, it's really not about us getting any bigger. It's just about us helping indie music get out there.
Yeah. So right now we do the podcast, and we've been talking to you, but we haven't heard any music. The problem is that you can send us music. Yeah. But if you distribute it through let's say CD Baby, we attach that song to the YouTube video, then YouTube is going to flag us
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
copyright.
Yeah.
I don't like that. So
Yeah.
then figured, well, maybe if we separate it and do an audio only show and
Yeah.
then really showcase the music, because right
Mhm.
now we're meeting the people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's like the people, like, yeah, this show, I guess that's a good way to explain it. The show is more of the people behind the music.
Yeah. That's
this,
cool.
this show.
This show.
And
yeah,
then the radio show is going to be
the
the
music
music
The music. Yeah.
in front,
in
of,
front
the
of the people.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's really like we haven't, like, we're very close to be releasing it right now. Like, it's seriously, we're freaking right there, man. Like, I don't even want to say too much about it, but essentially the concept is like, it's just going to be, it's not going to be a whole shit ton of commercials or ads.
Yeah.
It's going to be like the song and us, we don't even, this is where we're at. We don't know if we're going to be talking before or after the song, explaining who the song is and what it is. Like, really, we just need to make up our minds if that's before or after the song, and then that's the show.
Yeah.
Right. We'll play
Yeah.
a song that was whatever by Truth and Agony.
Yeah.
And then dive right into the next song. That was whatever by Chris Henderson, whatever
Yeah.
by League
Yeah.
of Wolves, on, and then do that for a half hour or an hour. That's another thing we need to decide.
Yeah.
And then
It's just a little,
put it out there. That's all
we have
it
the
is.
global concept in mind. We just have to figure out the little details, like, how long is it going to be? How are we going to introduce this? We need to get Joe from the Limited Podcast on board, because he's going to do some vocals on it for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Just little things.
And
that,
then we're not going to anybody to put it out. Like, we're just going to put it out there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. You guys
Like-
can start having your own, start putting on your own shows, like festivals and stuff like that, acoustic shows in the studio, that kind of shit.
We've
that's
joked,
part of the
that
plan.
idea around there. What was it? Moose Fest.
Moose Fest. Yeah.
Is
Cool.
the name. When we do it, that's what it's called. Moose
So
Fest.
Yo,
last year was
just on the name of your fest alone, we want to play it.
okay, you're invited.
Just because.
You'll
Yeah,
be there.
right on. Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
be there, man. You're in.
Yeah. So last year was the 5-year anniversary of the record store.
Cool.
And last year we were supposed to organize this festival, but
Yeah.
2020 happened.
Yeah.
So now we're on 6 years and we're still not doing a festival. So
Yeah.
maybe the 7-year mark.
Time's ripe. You never know. Yeah. Yeah. Let us know.
Yeah. Okay.
We're all about promoting like homegrown shit. You know what I mean? Like other bands. Like one thing I've noticed about bands here in Saskatoon is we all kind of help each other out. You know what I mean? Like if we were playing a show, for examples with the Steadies, and say Earl breaks his string, he can easily grab our bassist bass and finish the show, no problem. We wouldn't even think twice. You know, like that kind of stuff, right? I couldn't imagine sharing a stage with bands that were like that. A friend of mine, who will remain nameless for the story, was playing with Mariana's Trench, and their singer, like, they have their drum riser and they had a sign that said, "Don't put anything on the drum riser." So the opening band, which my friend was in, played, and then their bass player put his water bottle on the drum riser. And in front of the crowd, the singer of Mariana's Trench walks out and slaps his bottle off the drum riser, like, just being a dick, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't imagine playing with bands like that. Couldn't imagine it, man. Yeah, you know, like, yeah, seriously.
I know
seriously.
that. But what you're saying about like the scene in Saskatoon, how everyone's like, out, like not supporting each other, but promoting each other and like, just being kind to one another and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I see it too, man. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, like if we were doing a music video,
right?
I would wear like a Steadies t-shirt in it, kind of thing, like that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, totally get it, man.
So you're saying you need a Funky Moose t-shirt?
Sure, yeah. I got some Truth and Agony ones here too. Yeah, we actually sold out of our kids ones. Yeah, there's our logo right there. Yeah, not bad.
I like it.
Yeah.
Hell
I'll
yeah.
send you if you guys give me a mailing address, I can send you to. No problem.
Yeah, we'll exchange. I'll send you some of mine.
Cool, man. Yeah,
for sure.
Like,
love it.
I
But
always
like
thought-
is like how Earl was how we got in touch with each other.
Yeah, he is.
And then
Yeah,
like I don't know do you know who Aspen Beverage is at Skull Creek Studios? Have you heard of him?
I believe I've heard of him. Yeah, I don't think I've met him though. No.
like he's awesome guy to meet. Like I really think you should meet him too. Like he's
Cool.
you know, sent some people our way, and we've been in touch with him too. And just like, hell yeah, man. Like everybody in Saskatoon in the music scene that I've met personally, like I love, like everyone's like open arms with everything. It's
Yeah, me too. You know, like I've met a couple other bands here in Saskatoon, Chasing Illusions. Like their lead singer Dawson and I are really, really tight. Musqua is another band here. Their singer Christine and I are pretty tight too. You know, like like we all really, really like what each other's doing, you know, and we're all really supporting each other, especially right now because gigs are so small, you know, like stages are so small. So anytime we ever get asked to play, automatically one of the first things we ask is if we can have an opening band, even if it's for 3 songs, at least they're getting out there, right? And we'll get one of our friends' bands to come play, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I was saying exactly.
Yeah. Like, let's say, you know, the clouds open up and all of a sudden we get a huge major label, multi-billion-dollar record deal. One of the provisions in my contract would be that I get to hire my own crew and every one of my friends gets a job. Everyone. Whether it's driving, being a roadie, cooking, just, you know, rolling dubs, like whatever you got to do. Everyone gets a job. Everyone gets a job. Because I couldn't imagine succeeding and not having my people with me to be successful. You know, I
you trust, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, I know I thank God I've never had any terrible nightmares. But when I first started out, I had this guy who like wanted to manage me, you know what I mean? And he's pretty involved in like the hip hop scene and he knows some people and stuff. And in the time I was with him over 30 days, he signed me to a contract and everything. And like all the gigs I went and got myself. So I didn't have to pay him because he didn't get them. And then he started complaining he wasn't making money. And I'm like, well, you've done nothing, you know what I mean, to do anything. So why am I going to pay you for work I did? Like, why would I pay you for that? And yeah, and he went online and he slandered me really personally, you know what I mean? It was a nothing thing that cost him nothing, cost me nothing, and then you made it real personal. So I absolutely refuse to work with managers anymore. Like I won't do it. You know, I'd rather do it myself. Why would I pay someone when I'm perfectly capable of doing it myself? Some people won't do it because they don't have that, they can't handle the confrontation, because sometimes you're going to play and guys aren't going to want to pay you. You know what I mean? And you can't be a yes man in the music business. If someone's like, oh, I said 2,000, but I only got 800, here you go. Well, no, that wasn't the deal, you know? So having people that you can trust, that, and also people that know what they're doing so they can catch things that you don't, you know what I mean? Like, I hear a lot of horror stories about, especially in Canada, mostly in Ontario and BC, not so much here, but bands signing these contracts literally without reading them and realizing that they have to put out 10 albums in 5 years and tour all that time. And you just lock yourself into this crazy contract that you're never going to fulfill and never could, even if you had 24 hours a day to do it. Now you owe a bunch of money, right?
Yeah.
And it really, really hampers a lot of people from getting involved in the music business, is knowing that there's a lot of those kinds of predators out there and stuff. And kind of like the music scene here in Saskatoon, where people are saying it's predatory, right? I'm sure in some cases it has been, you know, but for the most part, no, it hasn't. And I know for sure that no one gets treated like that at Truth and Agony shows ever. Because if I seen somebody who was doing that to a girl in a crowd at one of my shows, I would put my guitar down, I would jump off the stage, and I would punch the guy the fuck out, and that's that.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
I wouldn't put up.
Yeah.
I went to Janelle and I saw Monster Truck and Billy Talent in Regina. What this?
Monster Truck is really good. They're really good.
I like them. But there was something going on, like from where I was sitting, I couldn't exactly see what the hell was going on, but it was getting a little rowdy in the crowd.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, were you in the stadium, or were you in a club? Oh,
it was in a stadium. Just
it was in the stadium.
Yeah, I can't remember that. I'd have to check again where exactly it was in Regina.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Brand Center.
Fuck, I don't remember, man. But anyways, it was getting a little rowdy right in front of the stage, and what I thought was like first class was Billy Talent stopped in the middle of the song, and they were like, "What the fuck are you guys doing, man?
Yeah.
Like, we're here to have a good time, and you guys are fighting and getting rowdy. Like, we're not going to play again until you guys get the fuck out."
Yeah, beat it, man. Yeah,
and that's what happened. I was just like, holy shit. Like,
I remember Dave Grohl doing the same thing.
Right?
Oh, yeah. He's well known
big
for
arena.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one guy that was being an asshole, and he just stopped. You, you
get the
look at
fuck
me.
out.
You're coming to my show, and you pull that shit. No, you're out.
Yeah,
Get him out
Get
of
the
here.
fuck out. Beat it.
Yeah.
I thought that was the coolest thing.
Well, yeah, like, and he's right. You are there to have a good time, and you are paying money to have a good time, and you're paying me money to come to my shows to have a good time and feel safe. So there is no way that I would just allow that kind of stuff to go. It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. The guys in my band would say something too, like we're not the kind of person who's just going to do that for the money and let someone, like, you ruin someone's fucking life that way, man. Seriously. You have to, and there's no way that bands can be like, oh, we don't know what's going on. Like, there's no way you don't know what's going on. I know what's happening with every facet of my band and my crew and everyone who's associated with my band, because as I'm learning right now that I also represent the guys in my band. So I can't go to a bar and act like an asshole to people, because it makes Ador and Blaine and Adam all look like dickweeds, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
So I just don't go to the bar. I've never been much of a drinker, so I just don't go to the bar unless I'm playing anyway, right? But people once they like, I've always said that alcohol should only be served at shows up to certain amounts. Like, you go into a show and you buy a ticket and it only has 4 little slots. You can only have 4 drinks, right? That's it. Because if you're going somewhere and you're over serving people, what do you expect is going to happen if you're at a rowdy show and, girls are walking around dressed provocatively, acting provocatively, also drunk, like, people don't know what they're doing, right? It's just a recipe for disaster. And what's happening right now in the music scene is that anytime that you've ever acted inappropriately, people can come out of the woodwork 20 years later and ruin your life and ruin your career. You know what I mean? So, and when you think of the word sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like, sometimes it isn't always so nice and pretty, right? And I'm also guilty of not treating women very nicely. I've never sexually assaulted or raped a girl, but I've definitely been in trouble, and do I have to worry about someone coming out of the woodwork and being like, well, hey, like, this happened, So we also want to give voices to people, and we also want to listen to people, but we're also not going to give a platform for people who are on a witch hunt, right? And the problem in Saskatoon with some of these and the problem with Saskatoon with some of these bands is some of these incidences have happened years and years and years ago, and the timing is kind of weird because some of these bands just got record deals and stuff, and now you come forward with it. I'm not saying it didn't happen or diminishing it in any way, but it's a shitty situation for everyone involved, and there's going to be no winners until something changes. Like, it's just going to keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. And people's lives are getting ruined. Your livelihoods are getting ruined. Like, people are going to jail. People are going to jail and stuff like that, right? So it's a really, really treacherous slope kind of thing right now. And especially in venues where people are feeling unsafe. Like, I've been to many venues here in I've been to the many shows at the Capitol here in Saskatoon. And I personally have never noticed anything amiss there. You know what I mean? But the way COVID is going is it's shutting down our venues. I don't know if you guys know the Garrick Theater in Winnipeg.
I don't.
No, it's I believe it's a venue that's been open for almost 90 years in Winnipeg. Like, I think the Guess Who started kind of had their first big gigs there, sort of thing. Like, it's a part of it's a part of the music culture. Imagine Sask Place closing or Centennial Auditorium closing. It's the equivalent. You know what I mean? Yeah, so a lot of these venues aren't able to withstand COVID, right? They can't financially. It's not financially feasible. So we are literally losing our places that are having venues, right? And if COVID's sticking around, the days of us renting a hall and throwing our own shows are over, which was the way indie bands made a lot of money back in the day. You get a couple of your friends. Yeah, you guys, we've all been to those shows, and they were the best. They were the best, and because you got to see all your friends' bands and stuff, and like the guitar player would stop in the middle of the song to shake your hand because you know them, like that. Those kinds of shows, they're awesome. They're the best. They're the best. And they're a dying breed now. They're going the way of the dodo, and it's really, really bad because if you're not a big name band, are you not going to be able to play anywhere? Like, do you have to be in a stadium to play? Because I know Truth and Agony, we're not at stadiums right now. We couldn't fill Sask Place, but the only way to get there is through having tons of small shows and touring and having your name brought out there, and we're not allowed to do that.
Right? Yeah, the footwork. Yeah.
A lot of bands, well, it's getting a lot easier to get noticed now. I've heard of bands getting record deals without ever playing a live show. Like, I've heard of that. Like, that's insane to me. I could never understand that. Like, I always thought that bands, before you can consider yourself like a full working professional band, you should have played at least 100 shows, you know, like you should have, whether they're 5 people or 500, like at least small shows. And, you know, your van had to have broken down 5 times on the way there and 3 on the way back. And, like, you know, you set your road crew out to go find a girl for the evening so we'd have somewhere to do laundry that night, you know, like that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Yeah, you use your CDs to roll joints on, not to sell, right? Like, yeah, man, it's
Right.
and that's the good part about music. That was the good part, you know, that was the adventure and the fun. I was 18 years old, living in Vancouver the very first time I went on like my kind of quasi first tour. There's 2 bands in BC. There was 3 and one of them dropped out. So we were friends with another band. So they asked us to come. We played in Vancouver, in Kelowna, in Kamloops, in Banff, in Edmonton, Red Deer, and Calgary, and back. So we rented 2 15-passenger vans, and it was a bunch of 20-year-old kids that had no money, and like, yeah, it was pretty cool. I'm surprised we didn't end up in prison for a very, very long time.
How often did those vans break down?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. I remember one of the drummers of the band, his dad like gave him a CAA card, and we all like wrote him a big thank you letter that he bought him that thing, you know, it saved us so many times, right? Like we would change one tire, drive 20 kilometers, and the other tire would blow. Then you change that one, then the other one would blow. Like it was just nonstop. I remember we told the rental place, it was like, if you give us a van that has problems, like we're just going to blow it up and drive it off a cliff. It's like, it's never coming back. But we made it home. And like, so we played about, you know, 10 to 8, 9, 10 shows or something like that. And we came home with about minus 60, something like that, you know? So yeah, well, it wasn't minus 50 million, right? So it could have been worse.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was awesome because we got out there and we like met fans and shit. And like we were playing at shows where there was no stage. Like we were even with the fans and they were like crashing against us while we're playing. And it was awesome. You know what I mean? I was just a kid. I was 19, 20 years old, right? Like I'd never really been away from my parents. Like I lived in foster care growing up, but I never really gone on like something like that, you know, where there was like a purpose and you sit down and you think about it when you're my age now at 40 and you think like, God, I was such a stupid kid. Like how the fuck did I think any of that stupid shit was ever going to work ever, you know? And now I'm about to do it with my band, but it's not so stupid anymore. Now it's really serious, you know? Like Truth and Agony. Yeah, Truth and Agony is more like a serious band. Like we're starting to, I never really intended us to get like involved in like social issues and stuff, but a lot of our songs are starting to become about that because there's some things that we're just really dissatisfied about. And we're really want to bring some attention to it. Like one of the things in Canada, you guys ever heard of the Highway of Tears?
I think so.
Rings a bell, but
yeah, so that's a highway in northern BC from Prince George to Prince Rupert. It's about a 700 kilometer stretch of highway where about 55 women have gone missing or been murdered since the 60s. Yeah. And like it blows our mind that people in Canada don't know what it is. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you ask people what a Starlight Tour is, they don't know what it is. Oh, that's such a nice name for an album. We're looking at them like, what? You know what it is? Oh yeah, that's the Northern Lights, right? Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Like Saskatoon for forever was this kind of like, it was like a bastion of like the ignorant and intolerant for me at least, you know, like I remember I grew up in Saskatoon where like if you were like, at the time where like for example if you were homosexual you could get killed for that kind of shit, you know what I mean? If you had long hair people called you a fag and like you know like it was just really it was a really bullying city. Like it was a very belittling and condescending city to me. And then I went to Vancouver where like in Saskatoon I was the biggest weirdo ever, and in Vancouver I was the most normal because it's the San Francisco, it's the California of Canada, right? And I remember standing in downtown Vancouver and looking at like just this sea of people, it was like rush hour. So there's like bike messengers and buses on wires and you can hear the subway. And I was just like system overload, you know, I was just a kid from Saskatoon. I was like, man, I have arrived, Jack. Like, this is where I belong. And I stayed there for 8 years and I had my daughter out there and then I got involved in heroin and well, you know, that goes right. So it turned out, it turned out good. At least it gave me some good content for a couple albums, right? So I hate writing lyrics. Like I find it so tedious and so monotonous, and it actually really hurts too, because sometimes when you write songs, you have to kind of go into this part of yourself that hurts to talk about it properly. You have to go over it and reliving.
Do you find it therapeutic?
I do. I absolutely do, because it's so much easier to vent to a stranger than someone who knows you, because then they're going to be biased, right? Like,
right.
There's been times in my life before where, fucking strung out on drugs and stuff, I sat down on a bus bench and literally just talked for 20 minutes to some person who I didn't know their name, didn't see them before, never saw them again. But I felt better knowing that I told someone about it. I'm sure they probably looked at me like I was an escaped mental patient the entire time, but I was talking about something that bothered me that I couldn't tell my own people, because either I was afraid of being judged, I was afraid they wouldn't understand, or I was most likely afraid of being rejected and ridiculed, right?
Right.
So writing music is like talking to a room.
Key word there, being afraid.
Yeah, definitely. I spent so much of my life in fear. I was bullied in high school a little bit, like not to the point where I was going to bring an assault rifle to school and start shooting people, but I didn't deal with that well. Like I don't really know anyone who does as a teenager, because fact of the matter is you're being abused, and people are watching it and either encouraging it, laughing at it, or just indifferent to it. And that's why the genre of horror movies about kids who get revenge in high school is such a big seller. And that's exactly why Columbine happened too, right? Like, it was because people were getting bullied, did nothing about it, right? But now it's a lot different, because there's so many protocols in place for it. Like, there's zero tolerance for that shit anymore. Like, you get caught. What was that girl's name in BC? Remember that Dutch weirdo? It was Todd, Amanda Todd. Yeah, she killed herself. A young girl, like she must have been 14 or something. Yeah. There's laws to protect people from cyberbullying and stuff. And I know a lot of band members, guys in bands, who are experiencing like some serious like death threats too, just because of their views on COVID. Yeah, it's crazy. At the end of the day, like this is music, yeah, for sure, and it means something. But it's just that, like, like I'm not one of these bands who does something for shock value. I'm not Marilyn Manson or any of that stuff. But when you become public with your political views, you leave yourself open to that kind of shit from people, right? Because there's two things that people will always go nuts over is religion and politics. Two things that we don't write songs about. Like, we don't really, we don't really get into arguments with people about it, because it's just a never ending cycle, right? You're never ever going to make everybody happy, and you're never ever going to satisfy everyone, right? So
right,
and it's hard, and it's really hard too, especially in Canada. People are really, really pissed off when you try and censor them. Like, it's like censorship is just something that people have grown up not used to here. Like, we're not used to it at all, because we never had to deal with it. Whereas with COVID, so much stuff is being censored now, right? And you never know what's the truth anymore. You never know who's on your side. Like, remember at Christmas time, everyone's biggest worry was whether your neighbor would call the cops on you for going to visit grandma for a quick 10 minutes, like it just ripped us apart, man. Like, it just tore us apart. And the people that are suffering the most, I think, are our kids. Like,
I remember a lady giving me shit in an aisle at Safeway, I think it was, because I fucking wasn't following the arrows, God forbid. I leaned in, like I was grabbing a box of cereal.
That was around the corner.
Yeah, and I fucking leaned in to grab something. I was probably maybe, let's say, 6 to 10 feet in at the one end.
But you had your mask on. You had your mask on.
Yeah, like, it wasn't like I
who
leaned
cares?
in. Sorry, it was like I actually had to step in there a few feet, and she was giving me shit because I went in the wrong way. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like,
yeah, who cares? Shut up.
Like, settle down.
But tell them about her mask.
Oh yeah, it was like under her nose.
And then tell them about the guy behind her.
Right. No, that was a different time.
Oh, was it? Oh,
that one was a different time.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess it was twice. I was going down the wrong.
Oh,
because I'm
rebel.
like, fuck those arrows, man.
I literally say that when me and my wife do it. I say we're rebels. I say that all the time. Yeah. Oh, rebellion.
So there was a lady with her mask like under her nose glaring at me because I was going down the aisle the wrong way. And then I didn't say anything and like, whatever, just walked by her. But then there was like this guy who was like 250 pounds and like 6'4" or whatever. And I'm kind of like, I'm not a big guy. And I'm kind of looking at him and I'm like, sorry, man. I'm going my way. Like, I don't give a shit. You're a grown ass man. I was like, all right, buddy. Like, good. We're on the same page. Fuck. Like, thanks.
Well, some people just take it to the extreme, right? Like, I think it's weird that the police, like the city police, are out enforcing a public health order, which isn't a criminal thing, right? Like I don't know. It's you know what? I actually watched this video the other day where this woman who was a Holocaust survivor, believe it or not, was equating how the lockdowns are similar to the way the Nazis came into Poland or something like that. Like, and she made these points, and she was in her 90s, I think, or late 80s. Or
you cut out at Holocaust survivor.
Oh yeah, she was equating the way the lockdowns and the restrictions are similar to the way the Germans came into Poland, because people think that Germany invaded Poland with guns blazing and bombs and tanks, and they didn't. They came in through the ballot box. Poland voted them in. Yeah, and the reason they were able to do what they did was because little by little they gave up these freedoms, little by little by little by little.
Right.
Yeah, and then by the time they wanted to do something about it, they had laws against there was a law against you being allowed to do something about it, right? So look what happened. And it's, obviously it's nowhere near the horror and devastation of the Holocaust, and I'm not trying to minimize it in any way, but it's scary that so many people can just blindly follow something. I learned something about this vaccine. Like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't have the attention span. I'm ADHD, as you can tell. I got the attention span of a dust mite on crystal meth. Yeah, maybe even less. What? Anyway, I learned that the makers of this vaccine, which is like Pfizer and Johnson and Johnson and AstraZeneca and all that stuff, that if you get the vaccine and you are injured or die, that you cannot sue the makers. That part of the reason Canada got the vaccine so fast was because they signed a 100% no fault declaration, which is that we can't sue the makers if this vaccine doesn't work. And the reason that it came through is because it's experimental, right? It's an experimental vaccine. There's no way that they came up with a vaccine to solve COVID in 8 months when it took 10 years to cure polio.
Yeah, I've heard some similar things to that.
If it works, I'm glad, because if we can get back to as normal as we knew it, I'm all for whatever it takes, as long as we don't have to give up certain rights and freedoms, right? Like I wouldn't allow the police to just come in my house and check people's cards if they've been vaccinated. Like I would never allow that ever.
Right.
I don't think we should have to have passports to go places. You know what I mean? In our own country. If we want to go to like Cuba or something, sure, right? But they want to make passports where if you want to go interprovincially, that you have to have X amount of time here and X amount of vaccine, X amount of, like, I don't agree with the kind of the way things are going with it. And it's really scary, because I read this book when I was younger called 1984. It was written by this guy named George Orwell.
Oh yeah.
And, have you ever read it? Oh yeah, it's classic.
I haven't read it, but I think we have the DVD upstairs.
Awesome. Yeah. So what happens is it's in, this book was written in like the 20s or the 30s. It was just during the Second World War, I think, early 30s. And he wrote that in the year 1984, which was the distant future for them, that the government would just have complete say in your life. Like your walls were pretty much like screens that the government could turn on and watch. And you weren't allowed to think certain things. You weren't allowed to say certain things. You weren't allowed to feel certain things. And like, anytime you said something against the government, these guys would come to your house in the middle of the night, throw a bag over your head, and no one would ever see you again, act like you never existed. And all your information, like they go through your garbage, they go through everything. Like it just, and it's kind of scary how similar, like how accurate he was, right? Like this is like the Patriot Act. Remember in 9/11, when 9/11 happened, I was actually living in Vancouver. When 9/11 happened, how kind of after, how they had that terror threat, how it was green for normal, orange, yellow, orange, and then red. It never went under. orange, yellow, or red. It was always like, if you keep people afraid, they'll keep buying shit. You know what I mean? We'll spend money we don't have to impress people we don't like with shit we don't need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening. I totally think this virus was real. This virus is absolutely real. But a bunch of really sick pigs capitalized on it, right? They saw that they could use social media as an example to show how afraid people are. And if people are afraid, they'll do anything, man. They'll do anything if they're afraid, right? You keep them stressed out and afraid enough, they'll keep paying. If you keep telling them they have to pay, they'll keep paying, man. They'll do anything when they're afraid. People are being conditioned not to question anymore. I'm
gonna steer it a little off topic here, kind of,
Sure.
sort of. I'm curious so with everything that we're talking about, like, and I know you're not a conspiracy theorist or anything.
No.
Did you hear that, like, was it last week that the Pentagon released that video footage of the UFO that they got on film?
Yeah. I was going to watch that.
That's crazy shit, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Like, for years, they were kind of putting out, well, all these people are kooks. They don't know shit.
Yeah.
But they
and
were
now
right.
they're like, yeah, everything's been true for the last 50 years since Roswell.
Yeah.
It's all true.
Yeah.
And you know what? And people, like, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody knows.
Yeah, no. Who cares, right?
But they also released a couple of videos a few months ago.
Yeah, every now and again there's like a little bit, well, that the footage that they released last week of the triangular shape there with the green infrared film, that was actually filmed in 2019, but it was just leaked out last week, and then they were
shit.
It seems like they just released that when there's other news going on.
Yeah, and you know,
it's
I kind of thought that too.
And then all of a sudden it's like,
impression.
oh, but we released it. Like, I mean, if you didn't see it, then sorry.
And then there's people, like, there's so many people out there that, like, that are oblivious to it. Like, there's fucking aliens out there, and people are like, have no clue.
Yeah.
I think that's the coolest fucking thing out there, man.
I'm 100% sure we're not alone here.
Oh, like, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think we are alone out here neither.
No. There's too much evidence to suggest otherwise, right? Like, I'm kind of like a fact sort of guy. Like, if I want to believe something, I got to, like, see it or hold it. Like, it has to be tangible, right?
Right.
And there is enough evidence to support that. Yes, we are not alone. There's enough evidence to support that. Yeah.
For sure. Just knowing
believe...
how big fucking space and time is.
Oh, yeah.
How naive does one have to really be to think that we are the only fucking living creature? Like, get the fuck out of here, man.
There's that one little dot in the universe, in the whole universe. That one little dot.
We're just a speck on a big blanket, man. There's two places that we really don't know anything about. One of them is the ocean below us and the sky above us, right? Like, we don't know nothing really. Like, we know, but we don't know, like, another thing I also believe in is supernatural. I completely believe in that. And I didn't until I went to prison. And when I went to prison, there was, in the unit I was in, this is before the riot, at the very end of the cell block. So there's 35 cells up on top, 35 cells on the bottom. The bottom four, the top two and the bottom two, are supposedly haunted. People have committed suicide more than 5 times in each of those cells. And I heard it when I got there, and I didn't believe it. Like, I never had an experience or anything like that. So this one day, in Saskpen, it's not optional that you go to gym. Like, you have to go to gym, and the only time you can go back to your tiers. So guys will purposely leave stuff there so they can run back there and they'll just stay there, right? But I actually did have to go back there because it started snowing, and I knew for a fact that I was the only dude in this range. If someone was fucking with me, they definitely got me good, okay? But I knew for a fact that I was the only guy in this range because I was the last one to leave. And as I left, because I was still new, one of the older guys yelled, "Broste, shut the fucking door." So I shut the door because I was the last one. Last guy has to shut the door. So the door was shut. And I was also the first guy to get back to the range at halftime. The door was still shut. I opened the door, and my cell was about 8 cells above the bottom tier condemned cells. And they're always left open. They're always left open. So when I got to the tier, I didn't notice at the time, but they were closed. Okay. My hair is just starting to stand up right now. I go in my cell and get my jacket. And when I came back out, both the doors were open. And like
He hung up.
Keep recording.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe his phone died.
Oh, that's possible.
Right at the end of that fucking story, hey?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you anything like that ever happen to you? You ever see some shit? I have, man. Working in care homes. Fuck.
Oh yeah.
Dude, man, like, not to get into a long story here. Hopefully he jumps back on, but like working the graveyard shift.
Yep.
Like that's when a lot of like wheelchairs and stuff like that get sterilized, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just this one time out of many different things that I've seen on the graveyard shift, we would take out the wheelchairs out of the rooms, station them in the middle of the hallway, and then you kind of like sterilize them and then put them back as you go.
Yeah.
And like, oh man, this was so long ago, but I remember seeing the wheelchair, like my next wheelchair was like 4 rooms down in the middle of the hallway, and I'm sterilizing one, and the wheelchair just started wheeling towards me all by itself. Like scared the fucking shit out of me. Me and my partner were talking about, oh, could you imagine if this place is haunted and stuff? And then all of a sudden we could hear like squeaking.
Yeah.
And it was the squeaky wheel on the wheelchair that like started wheeling towards us. And we were like a good 30, 40 feet away from this chair, and it wheeled right up to us.
What'd you do?
Just fucking, what can you do?
Sterilize it?
Yeah, pretty much. Just like, that was the fucking craziest thing. You see that shit? And then you clean it and you put it back. Man, and then there was like door handles with like where they're not the turn knobs, but they like they're latched like the that, handles. Right? For those of you watching, like, I don't know how to explain it, but
handles,
anyways,
door handles.
It's a door handle,
not door knobs, door handles.
Right. And then so there was a resident that can't move, right? She's like a full lift, and her bed was like 10 feet away from the door, and she's in bed. It's the grave. She's sleeping, right? And I'm doing my rounds to check on him, and I get to her door was closed all the way. And as we get, me and my partner both saw this. We're standing there like this, like whatever, looking at the doorknob, like in arm's reach.
Yeah.
And the handle started jiggling, and it opened. The door crept, like the latch opened and crept open as if somebody opened it from the inside. And we looked at each other, and I pushed the door open, and the resident was just lying in bed looking at me, and I could see like the whites of her eye. It was the scariest fucking thing ever. And there was nobody in the room, man. Like the door opened by itself. So yes, I believe in that shit. Like full throttle.
I don't have examples, not that I can remember.
The worst was in the kitchen. So graveyard, you had to do the dishes too, right?
Yeah.
And I was on dishes this one night in there all by myself, and then we'd hear. I had heard stories. Actually, nothing happened that night. But there had been stories in that, you'd turn around and then the cupboard doors would be open and stuff. Oh man, it was just the eeriest feeling having to be in that kitchen by yourself. And there was a door to the basement that was in that kitchen with like one of those windows.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. Like I could never be like facing that door at all trying to do dishes. It was just so creepy. Crazy shit. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I've had, I don't know, instances where I have to believe that there's more, like I fully believe that something or somebody saved me from death, because I had meningitis when I was a teenager, and I was out of it for a couple of days, and I don't remember.
What's meningitis again?
It's it's where your brain oh man, it's hard to explain. I know I can tell you exactly how it works in Dutch, but like the terminology, like there's a
Say it in Dutch
no
for the
there's-
Dutch listeners.
there's
Out there.
like
Come on,
so your brain is wrapped in a like a bag, and it's like
a protective
Yeah.
barrier tissue kind
and
of
that
thing.
and that tissue, if that swells, that's caused by either virus or bacteria.
Okay.
And the bacteria, that's oftentimes the lethal one. That's the one I had, and it makes your brain swell. So you have a terrible headache. So I had for I don't know a few days. It felt like my head was in a vice and somebody was cranking it.
Like a migraine times 10 kind of thing.
Yeah, and to a point where I didn't feel the rest of my body. It was just my head that was throbbing. And then to relieve that pain, they take the fluids from your head through a spinal tap.
Fuck.
So I didn't even notice the needle going in. They didn't,
because your head hurt so bad.
they didn't even sedate me or anything. They just jabbed the needle in there and sucked it out. And they were like, "Oh, are you okay? Because normally this hurts." And I'm like, "I don't feel anything."
Right.
So I was in the hospital for about a week, and I figured that there must have been something other than earthly things that saved me from that somehow, and I can't explain it, and I don't want to, but I believe that there was either someone or something that pulled me through that.
Right. Like a guardian angel.
Yeah,
type
something
of-
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. He his phone did die.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he messaged me. He's just gonna let it charge a little bit and he's gonna jump back on here.
Okay.
Hey, we got you
Hey-o.
back.
Hey, sorry, yeah, my phone died.
Oh,
That's-
put it horizontally again.
Okay,
Turn
hold
it
on,
again.
Hold on.
There you go.
How was that on the timing of that story too? And then all of a sudden just boom.
Oh man, yeah. Okay, well, anyway, so I'll finish it
We
real
were-
quick.
We
Well,
were like,
we got to the part where
The doors were closed
The doors
and-
were
Yeah.
closed.
Okay,
You
so
went
I
back.
came out of the cell, and now I've noticed that these doors are closed. Okay, and right away you got that feeling. You as soon as I say it, you know what I mean. Where you're like, I am not alone here.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
something looking at me. I don't know what's going on. You know. And I looked at the door, and right as the door, and okay, like there was no light on in this cell when the door was open. The light flicked on, and the door slowly started kind of pushing, and there was no hand, like it was just opening itself. Okay, I gotta stop talking about it. No. I fucking
You
booked it
did it.
the fuck out of there.
No doubt, dude. You should have heard the story that I just fucking told Mark while we were waiting for you to come back on here.
yeah,
But
pretty similar.
kind of similar. That, like, I guess I'll say it again. But so I used to work in a care home, right? And
Okay.
this will be one of the stories that I said when you were here. But long story short is, doing my rounds, graveyard shift, me and my partner, and we're checking all the rooms. We get to this one room. The patient was like a total lift. So like she couldn't do anything on her own, right? Like needed
Yeah.
our help for absolutely everything. And her bed was like at the other end of the room, essentially. And it was one of those doorknobs. Like it wasn't a doorknob, it was like
door handle.
the door handles,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And anyways, so we get to this room and we're looking at the door handle. We're not touching it, and I shit you not, man, it fucking started jiggling and it latched and the door fucking started opening.
Yeah.
And I just looked
Ooh, fuck
at my
yeah,
partner.
no.
No, get this though. I look at my partner and right away we get that feeling like, what the fuck's happening, right? And the door creeps open and the resident is lying there with her eyes open, just fucking staring at us. It's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Scared the crap out of us. But like there was no in that room, man. And the
No.
door just fucking, it legit opened all by itself. We were like, what the, like shit like that happened all the time on Graveyard. In the care.
I totally believe that. I've been train hopping, and like I've been in like the deep south. Like I've train hopped into Mississippi and Alabama, and like I've been in the swamps, and you hear like screams in the night where it sounds like people being butchered, even though there is no one around for
Right. Yeah.
and like there's no way. They especially in Louisiana in the south, they have this it's kind of like an urban myth, like it's called the loup-garou, which
Like, mais moi, je parle français, I speak French, right? So a loup-garou in French is a werewolf, right? But in Acadian means something else, right? And they say that it has this scream that's like sounds like either a child or a woman injured. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what I heard. I don't know.
Could very well be, man.
Yeah.
But hey,
dude,
okay.
that stuff.
So what we're gonna do is, if you want to go ahead and just like plug the handles, like where can people find you? Where can they get your music? That whole, where's the best place?
Yeah.
That they can get in touch with you. If you want to just plug those out, and then I'd love to be able to end the episode with one of your songs if we can do that, depending on how you release them.
Yeah.
Did you go through like CD Baby?
No, we haven't even done it yet. We're going to be using DistroKid for that. Like, you can play the song that I've sent you. If I need to sign a release or something, like, it's cool, like whatever. You know?
I think we'll be okay. Like, you already sent it to me, as long as we have it on video. If you say
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So,
it's all good, man. Go ahead, play it. Yeah.
all right. So if you just want to go ahead and plug your socials there.
Yeah. Truth and Agony. We can be found at Truth and Agony Music on Facebook. We've got a pretty good Facebook page. At Truth_and_Agony on Instagram, Truth and Agony on YouTube, at Truth_and_Agony on TikTok, and you can find me on Facebook at Lucien Broste.
Right on.
Awesome.
And we'll have all those in the description of this episode as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks again. You stay on with us. We're going to say bye to everybody. We'll see you guys all next week.
Thanks for hanging out.